Alright, well today is the day. I'm going to try to put my 7-pin on. I'm not going to try, I'm going to. I'm going to put my 7-pin on in place of my 4-pin for my towing on the 2020 Kia Telluride. Need a brake controller on there, so here's the parts that I've gotten. I've got a brake controller. It's about the Hopkins flex mount brake controller. The reason I went with this one is you get these little pieces that you can mount kind of out of view. It's not too crazy, and there's no drilling. This is a no drill installation, so didn't really want to poke any holes in my new car. Some flex loom. Got the ring terminals, 20 amp circuit breaker, my 7-pin, all my little connectors, and two big old huge rolls of wire there. We sell this at work, so that's why I have two big huge rolls. It's way overkill. I bought the Hopkins flex mount brake controller from E-Trailer, and also the 7-way this as well from E-Trailer. I don't work for E-Trailer or anybody else, but man, they're awesome for a customer experience standpoint. Absolutely love dealing with them. Order it 2 days later, shows up, free shipping, greatest technical support if you ever run into any issues. So, all right, after pulling off the already installed 4-pin, I'm like, Kia, it's South Korean. It's got to be metric. It's not. It's a 3/8 on the back of these carriage bolts. So don't be digging around trying to find everything in the millimeters, because you'll just waste your time. This is actually 3/8 standard. So and once you start to lift this up, you'll notice something. It's actually looks like a 7-pin mount back behind there. So we'll work on getting this. Just as expected, there is a 7-pin mount back there. So hopefully this will not be too hard of a install back here, or any custom fabrication on the really cheap part that I bought for the back. Less expensive, it's not cheap. There's the 4-pin hanging that'll actually plug into the 7-pin, and then some extra wires for brake control. So this is where we're at right now. Okay, the 7-way that I bought off of E-Trailer works like a champ, and it did fit right in there. The only thing I forgot to buy in my accessories, because the bolts that come off are not long enough to actually fit through the plastic of the 7-way pin, or the 7-pin connector, and the metal. So I used some bolts that I had. I may swap them out. I don't know if I like the silver yet. Basically what we're going to do now is I'm going to work on wiring all this, these extra wires here. So that's going to be brake controller, ground. We'll get to it when I see the instructions. I know what they are, but I just can't think of them right now. Then the 4-pin plugs in straight right into there. So there you go. Stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to mount the box now inside the front driver's side. This box has to be mounted a specific way. You can either mount it on the side over here where your left foot goes, or you can mount it in the center console. I'm going to choose to mount it right up here. I'm actually going to screw this in because this is going to go with the vehicle if I ever get rid of it. You don't have to. You could double side this, tape this. And the box has to go where the wires are facing forward. So just remember that. Okay, so I've mounted the box, as you can see here. And just used the screws that came with it, mounted it right there. So next on the list is actually mounting the display. So you got to figure out where you're going to put that, and then also mounting the little mechanism where you actually control the brake if you in emergency, or actually control the amount of brake you're giving. I believe I'm going to mount my display right here. That's where I think I'm going to mount that. And I believe I'm going to mount this. You got to be able to get to these side buttons to be able to program it. So you got to mount it in a way that you can get to it in case of an emergency, but also still program it from the side. So I'll probably put it right in that area right there. I think that'll be a decent area. I'm gonna just double side tape this. Make sure when you double side tape, you clean up both sides with denatured alcohol, the place where you're gonna mount it, and push very firmly. It's warm out here today, so it should stick pretty well as well. All right, so I have it mounted. So I've got this piece mounted right here, and this piece mounted right up here, and this is about perfect. The door doesn't hit it at all, but it's like butts up right against where the door would shut. So that's about perfect. And we'll run these wires down through this side and up and hide them up underneath here. And these wires here will actually have to be run and hidden. They got to go back to the front of this control plate down here, or whatever you want to call that. So next we'll be running wires. All right, so I've got a couple of tools here. I've had these for a while. These are dash pulling tools, and they won't scratch your dash up. I'm going to use these to route my wires around. All right, I will say this one little spot right here was a pain in the butt. So I ended up having to use a little no-no item, but a little pick to get back behind there. You just have to be super careful if you're going to use anything metal in that area. I don't suggest it, but I didn't have the patience. But there we go. We got it run down through there. Got it hidden back behind here on this side. So now onto this piece over here. All right, looking in the engine bay, looks like the easiest way to get in there is actually going to be, hard to see down in there, but right back in there, there's a set of wires. It's right in the middle of the floorboard underneath the steering wheel. You're going to have to go through that, and you're going to have to seal up the holes with silicone when you're done. So another thing I didn't have on my list, but I should have some in here somewhere. All right, so what we're going to do right now is run a positive and a negative cable, or a cord, wire, whatever the heck it is, that are going to come off the battery. They're going to go through the firewall, through that little area underneath the steering wheel, and into the cabin. That will go into the brake controller on the positive and negative side. You could, I guess, in theory, actually ground the brake controller to the frame. I'm going to do it to the battery just to be safe. That's what it says in the instructions anyway. So this is what's going to happen next. All right, kind of hoping some magic happens here. There we go. So we got 2 wires ready for the engine bay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wire the 2 wires that I ran through. I really should have ran 3. I should have ran a wire to pull back to the back of for the brake controller, or for the actual brake itself. But I didn't. But I will run one. So I highly suggest, if you're going to do this and follow my directions, run 3 wires through the firewall. One's going to go down and towards the back, and 2 are actually going to go to the back. One of them's going to come straight off the battery. I'll run that separately, but that won't go through the firewall. But coming out of the firewall from in here, the blue wire is going to go to a wire that's going to go all the way to the back. So when you put on the brakes, you're actually actuating the brakes in the trailer itself. So hopefully this turns out some pretty tight quarters right here, and I realize how old I am after I sit around in tight quarters. I won't even be able to move tomorrow. So what we've got here is the harness that came with the brake controller. This is a black wire is positive. You got to remember, when you're dealing with anything that is trailer related, the white and black are they're going to be opposite of most likely what you're thinking. White's going to be ground, black's going to be positive. So you got to remember that when you wire this up. If you wire this in wrong, you will actually, this does not have any protection in the brake unit, so don't wire it in wrong. Red is going to be your brake light. So basically when you put the brake on, we're going to tap into the brake light. I'll let you know what color that wire is once I find it. We'll tap into the wire that is hot when the brake is on. That actuates and makes the brake controller send the power to the brake, the wire that you move to the back or push to the back. Power is going to run across that, apply brakes to the trailer. And blue is going to be your trailer brake wire that you're going to connect to the one going to the back. So we're going to wire all this in. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut here these two wires, a little bit extra left. Cut those off. I'm going to strip these wires. Love these wire strippers. I work for a company called Automation Direct, and we sell these things. And tell you what, these things are great. I've used the heck out of them. So on my wiring harness, my 4-pin wiring harness that came with the brake module, I'm going to use the white and the black wire. So I'm going to strip those wires. And we are going to, I don't do anything with butt connectors. I never have, unless it's just a job I don't care about, and I don't do work that I don't care about. So you can do it however you want with the connector things, but I am a soldering guy. I'm going to make sure that this stuff, whoever has this vehicle after me, will still be safe. So, all right, so remember, white is ground. So I'm going to go ahead and do the ground. All right, so I got those two all soldered in and heat wrapped. So on to trying to find which wire is the brake wire. All right, so this was a big pain doing it the way I was. So I ended up pulling off this bottom panel. It's really not hard. There's a screw there. There's a screw here. There's a screw on this side. And you just kind of work your way around with those dash puller tools. But it's only taken me a few hours, but I'll save some people, other people, a whole lot of other time. But back in there is it's really hard. So this right here is where the brake wire is that we're going to tap into. And there's a green wire up here. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to pull this guy off. Let's say, there we go. And I'll pull it down here so I can work on it. All right, seriously, the easiest way to do this is going to be to use one of these connectors right here. I'm going to just splice into that up there. And I'm going to splice this blue wire in, and I'm going to use the blue wire as the brake signal to the controller. So, sorry I'm a little bit out of breath. I've literally spent about 2 hours trying to find this and get to this wire, so it's easy to get to. It was just figuring out which wire it was the hard part. All right, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to fish another wire through to go all the way to the back. We'll pull it through the firewall. It's going to go down and around the back towards the 7-pin in the back. That's going to give power from the brake module to the back and apply the brakes to the trailer. That's what this wire is going to be for. All right, we're going to pull this through nice and slow, hopefully, with minimal issues. There we go. And now we have another wire. All right, one trick I always do when I pull something through and I don't want to pull it all the way is I tie a little knot in it. That way it won't go all the way through the firewall. It'll stop at this knot. So basically what you do is you just give enough wire that you're going to use to tap into. So this way I won't pull all the way through the firewall. All right, I did jack up this side because I'm going to have to work underneath. And there's not enough clearance to crawl up underneath here even without a crawler. So forget clearance if you're going to use this for off-road and want major clearance. There is none. But anyway, the jack works. So in case y'all wondered that, it's a pain in the butt. Don't get me wrong. So next I'm going to crawl up underneath here and route the wires. Alright, so I've run all the wires up underneath. That is a bare. Just because it's tight underneath there, not a lot of clearance, and I have connected them all up back here. So the wire I ran off of the front brake controller through the firewall down and under into the back is this wire here going to the blue wire on the 7-way connector here. Red is going to come straight off the battery, and that's going into the black back here. And I actually had to extend the ground. Ground is actually wouldn't reach all the way up there, so I extended it. And this is going straight to the frame. I just drilled it straight into the frame. So for the ground back here, this is an extra wire. It's yellow. If you ever need backup lights or anything on a trailer, you could use this. It's just an auxiliary power. So, all right. So now I've tucked all the wires back up underneath in here. And zip tied them back in there. So now everything back here is buttoned up and ready to go. So as soon as I get everything in the front all cleaned up, I should be good to go with some power back here. So I got inside the driver's side to do, just button up a few things there, and then terminate it to the battery up front. Then I'll have to go to the store and get one more thing, because I will not have power back to here, which is no big deal to pull the trailer. I'm perfectly fine. What the power is going to do going back to here is charge the battery that's inside of your trailer if you have one like a camper. That's what that'll be for. So, all right, so back to the front inside. What I'm doing now is the wire that I spliced into the brake. So it's only 12 volt when you push on the brake. I'm now splicing into the red wire on this harness. And this blue wire is going to go to the wire that I ran all the way to the back to provide brakes to the trailer. So I'm going to splice these two in. So I'm going to solder them in and make them look all nice. And then from here, I'm going to plug this guy into the module, and I'm going to put the dash back together while I'm here. I'm starting to get kind of dirty, so we'll see how clean this white interior stays. Okay, so finished up here. Prettied up here in a little while, but this is just the extra red wire that's coming, or going to provide power to the back. Here's my 20 amp breaker. Now you have to make sure you read this copper color is the battery side, and then the silver is the auxiliary side. So this is going from here over to the plus on the battery. And I actually drilled a hole through the little side over here to put the wire in. And then also on the negative side, do not use this. If you use this, I've had this happen in the past, this is not a post to attach things to. This is the device that actually compresses and clamps this in place. If you put something here, it can't do it. It can't clamp, and your battery will either corrode over time, or your car just won't start. I've actually had that happen once before. So what I did is I pulled this off and went up underneath here. There's a bolt or a nut under here. Just pulled that off. It's a little bit of a pain to get off there. But got that off there, and then I terminated the negative that goes inside into the brake controller. So this negative's for the brake controller. This positive over here is going to the brake controller. This is going in here. Now I'm going to test everything out just to see if it works. I got this halfway together and then realized that I didn't do that right. Put this back on. All right, now start over again. So let's put this back over top of these lips here. This lip's got to go in over here on the left first. It's got to tuck down inside of here. Really nothing to it. It's just a brand new car. Kind of scares you a little bit. All right, so that's back in. We got a screw here that we took out. And then a screw over here we took out. Then there's one on the side up here. That's how that bottom panel comes off. All right, got two more pieces over here. Got the fuse area. Before I put my fuse thing on there, put this little side piece on here. Now this is gonna be a little tricky. I might have to actually use my little puller tools. Just gotta get up and back behind this junk. Actually, just go in like this. There we go. All right, so just gotta. It's super easy to get in there. It just snaps into place once you get that in place. So there is one little piece down here. I just noticed. There's a little nub right here. This guy fits into. There we go. All right. Zip tie this down just so it's not in the way. Keep everything else out of the way. In the way it's not drooping down. And there you go. Now that's back together. And literally, we're done. That is that. So that's all back together. Everything is working. So yeah, we're good. Turned out pretty decent. Just a little bit of work, just a little bit of a job, but overall it looks pretty good. Everything is working. There is one thing left that I don't want anybody to forget to do. So back into here, make sure you run some caulking through the hole that you made, if you can reach it from both sides, but definitely if you don't do this, your floor is going to get wet. So make sure you re-caulk that.